Hello Year 2. I wish I could be with you in person, but never mind, we'll do it this way. Today we're going to start a new unit of 3D work. So, turn to your partner. If you're in school or if you're at home, talk to somebody at home and just tell them what is the difference between 2D and 3D. Maybe we could do some actions to help ourselves. If we did this is 2D, isn't it? Because it's flat. It's got 2 dimensions. So it has height and width. That's 2D. If it's 3D, that must mean it has 3 dimensions. So that has height, width, and depth. Okay, so we're talking about things that are solid if we're talking about 3D. So let me begin by telling you a story. I want you to imagine what's going on in the story. So maybe you could close your eyes and just picture yourself there. This is called the story of the shadow puppets. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a woman in one of the many kingdoms that made up ancient China. She was a very special woman. She told the best stories. She was married to the emperor. The emperor loved her stories. He loved his wife. Sadly, one day, the emperor's wife became ill and she died. Everyone thought that the emperor would soon find another wife that he loved as much, but the emperor was very sad. He spent more and more time in his garden and less time caring for the needs of his people. Everyone in the kingdom was worried. They were afraid that another clan might hear that their emperor had become weak. That would never do. A warring clan might attack the city. That could be disastrous. Something had to be done, and done soon. One day, a priest passed some children playing with their dolls. The dolls made dancing shadows on the wall of the city. This gave the priest an idea. He knew the stories the emperor's wife used to tell. What if he could bring those stories to life? The priest made a puppet out of bits of clay. He painted the puppet to look somewhat like the emperor's wife. When the puppet was finished, the priest slipped into the emperor's garden, carrying his puppet, a candle, and a curtain. He placed the curtain near the emperor's chair. He placed the candle, his puppet, and himself behind the curtain. He waited for the emperor to appear. The emperor did not even notice the curtain at first. It was the dancing shadow that drew his eyes. As the priest moved the puppet behind the curtain, he told wonderful stories, just like the emperor's wife. The priest told a story she used to tell, one of the emperor's favorites. The emperor was entranced. He knew the priest was there. He knew the puppet was there. But it seemed as if the shadow was telling him the story, as if his wife was spending time with him. The emperor was no longer sad. At the end of each busy day, the emperor went into his garden, eager to visit his shadow wife and hear her stories again. And this is how the very first shadow puppets began. Wow. Okay, so now that we've imagined what happened in the story, I want us just to think and focus on the emperor's garden. So if you're in school, turn to your partner, have a little think, and then turn to your partner and tell your partner, what might you find in the emperor's garden? If you're at home, just talk to the person next to you at home. See if you can talk to mum and dad. So you can pause this video here if you need to discuss this. Let's have a think about what we might find in the emperor's garden. Now, I think you might tell me that you might see some trees. You might even hear the trees swishing in the wind. Perhaps you might see some beautiful flowers in the emperor's garden, maybe exotic flowers from China. Perhaps we might see some exotic fish swimming in a large pond, which has reeds around the edge and maybe a beautiful bridge over it. Perhaps we might hear a little creature walking across the grass. We might maybe even smell a sweet smell of flowers, perhaps. But I think you're probably going to tell me that we also might see some birds in the garden. Okay, so today we're going to focus on that idea of birds, and we're going to use clay to begin making a bird from the Emperor's Garden. Now, if you're at home and you don't have clay, you might think to yourself, I don't have clay, I don't have clay tools, I don't even have a rolling pin. But if you don't have those things we can improvise at home, you could use this recipe here to make salt dough instead of clay. And all you need for that is flour, normal flour, salt and water. And once you've made your salt dough, we can use it just like clay. We need to create a slab form, in other words, a slab of clay, and we need to roll it out. Maybe mum or dad have a rolling pin that you could use. There are sticks in that picture there just to make sure that the slab rolls out evenly, but you don't need the sticks. All you need to do is roll out your clay or your salt dough onto a flat surface that has either greaseproof paper on it or that has normal paper on it. But don't just roll it out onto the table because it'll get stuck. Okay, so we need to make it as flat as we can, and we need to make it as even as we can. So we don't want it to be too thin, because otherwise when it dries it will crack and break, especially at the edges. So try to keep it even. If you really haven't got a rolling pin, then maybe you can squeeze it out with your fingers, but just try to make it as even as you can. We are going to use different methods to do something called moulding. So let's have a look at this word, to mould. If we are moulding something, it means to form a shape using a soft material such as clay. You can see the lady in the picture there moulding something. If we put this word in a sentence, we could say, Mrs. Griffiths, who was skilled at baking, moulded roses out of icing for the top of a cake, or top of the cake. Do you know, I can imagine Mrs. Griffiths doing that because she is amazing at making cakes. So if we form something with our hands like that, something soft, that is called moulding. Now we can do that with the rolling pin, we can do it with our fingers, and we can even do it with other things which we're going to use today as well. So now that we've rolled out our slab of clay, we need to, if you're in school, choose one of the simple bird templates as your shape, and you are going to lay that down on your slab. And then we are going to draw around it with something like a clay tool, or if you're at home, a knife, butter knife, or something that you can draw around the edge with over your clay. If you're at home and you don't have a bird template, then if you have a look at these shapes here, you just need to draw a simple bird shape, which if you're choosing on a pizza box or a piece of paper, draw around it, cut it out, and then you can lay it onto your slab. You could get ideas by looking on the internet, or maybe mum and dad can help you with the shape of the bird. Made our clay bird shape and smoothed around the edge, it is time for us to do some indenting of patterns. So let's think about this word, indent. It means to make dents or notches or recesses in a material such as clay by pressing something into it. So you can see in the picture there, clay in the picture has little patterns in it which someone has scraped in. They've sort of carved it in using something sharp. So if we put the word in a sentence, we could say Cassidy used pasta to indent a beautiful pattern into his bird form. And that's what we're going to do. We are going to use pasta We're going to use simple things like forks. We can use knives. We can use clay tools if you're at school. We can make dots by using candle holders or cocktail sticks or something pointy that you have at home. And I've just thought about it actually. We could use the other end of the candle holder to make a flower shape. We can also make flower shapes in our imaginary bird if we want, by using the pasta. So let's have a look at how we can do this. Once you've made the main body of your bird, you could use the leftover pieces by squishing them together, rolling them into a ball, like we might have done at the beginning if we were at home. If you're at school, you're lucky you already had your slab. But this time you can use your leftovers to make another slab in the same way as we did before to create a wing for your bird. Now you could draw around a wing template, you could make your own wing template, or you could just draw around a wing from your imagination on your new rolled out slab and make patterns in that in the same way. Then let both of those pieces dry, the main body of the bird and the wing, and we will put them together and paint them next week.
But growth comes in ways that we can never plan. Pans out, the world reaching out with their hands out. Love is freely given with the call of their hand out. Stand down, receive